Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us to our Vintage Books Live. We are back with another anthology, and I'm super excited about that. The title of the anthology is Animal Noir, and it just released in the last few days, hopefully to be available at the store fairly quickly. We are working on getting copies, and I believe I'll have everybody share their um, contact information online because I'm sure there will be online ways for you to get the book as well if you don't want to wait, which is good. I am joined by the editor who is for me and my screen just to my left. I don't know how that's working out on everybody else's screens. Elizabeth Mitchell, and we're going to start with her tonight. Just ask what I have kind of fallen into asking about all of these different anthologies that we've been talking to folks about. As the editor, like how did this idea come together? And then how did you decide, how to um, get the word out? Was it a submissions process or was it just gathering people that you knew or a combination of both? But most of all, just how the idea came together for you.
So hi, I'm Elizabeth. Um, it's it started off as a Discord joke. Somehow one joke about ducks and it turned into swans and then turned into geese and just kind of snowballed and it a fellow publisher called me and was like, "Is this going to be a thing? Are we turning this into a something?" And I was like, okay, what kind of something?" And neither of us really, we didn't know. We just saw a lot of funny things. And so we kind of just brainstormed. And really, we only came up with mystery and anthropomorphic animals. That part I was very stickler at because at first he thought I was joking. And he was like, "Oh, okay, so a lot of animal puns." And I was like, "No, no, no. Anthropomorphic animals. Like we need real ones, like real cats." And he was like, "Okay, sure." So we got the ball rolling by basically just kind of reaching out to the people that were making the jokes on Discord and any of their friends that were just kind of interested. And we're just seeing who's interested in what would it look like. And people started kind of creating characters. I tossed out a list of a bunch of animals and was like, "Is anyone interested in actually using these animals? That would be fun." Unfortunately, the other publisher had to pull out. And so everyone's left with these amazing characters that they have already created. And so I couldn't let that die. That would just have been the saddest thing in the world. So I couldn't make it the we had planned this very elaborate thing that was not exactly fully formed yet, but it was very exciting. And so I was like, well, what if we all just make it a different kind of exciting? Which is basically you make it the exciting part instead of me. Um, you guys bring me an individual story with one of your awesome animals, and I will turn it into a book. And literally all I said was anthropomorphic noir mystery. I don't much care beyond that. Doesn't have to be like a violent crime, doesn't have to be, it can be whatever. We have a financial crime in the book. And, the question was, is this in one world? So I hadn't thought that far ahead. So the moment that I get this message, I just go, "Oh, okay." I write up two off the cuff paragraphs of this place called New Growl, and it took off. And from there, truly, I can claim nothing. Everything else was all of them playing, bouncing around ideas on Discord. From honestly, other than editing and making these little figures right here of their amazing characters, I, yeah, I was just their cheerleader and fixed commas. Otherwise, it was all their magic, truly.
That's so awesome. I just love how that little spark, all people need is a little spark of an idea, and then it just goes.
Yeah.
So I would love to just start talking about um, each folks and what you contributed and how you hear this idea, anthropomorphic and noir mystery. Like, how do you decide is that something you sit around and think about, or does it just pop into your head? I'm just really always curious because it's always such an interesting and different story for every person of how they approach the topic. So I'm looking at two different screens. I'm looking at my Zoom screen, and then I'm looking at the live version of it and seeing that uh, everybody's in a different order. So is it Elad? Is that correct?
Yeah, close enough.
Okay. You are actually right to my right, at least on
Okay,
my screen. So
sure,
would you like to start us
sure,
off? Just
of course.
introduce
Glad to.
yourself and then share your inspiration. And then um, why don't we go ahead and just do readings as well? And we'll just each give each person like their time in the spotlight to talk about their stories.
Sound good? All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Alad Haber. This is my second time on Vintage Books Live, so I'm very happy about that. And so for me, talk about the inspiration. I'm a strong believer in other mediums inspiring my writing. So music usually, but for this story, I was really film that made me think about it. Around the same time we were talking about anthropomorphic animals on the Discord, we were also watching a show called The Residents, fantastic show on Netflix, with a very idiosyncratic detective. So that was a big inspiration for me. Also, the film version of Clue, the classic movie, zany, fun, and I've always wanted to do something like that in that vein. Um, so for my story is about a purple-backed starling named Valaria. She's not a young bird, but none of us are. She's had a string of husbands. All of them have passed away, leaving her a very lasting wealth. And so she's become a fixture in the New Grawl party scene. And that's so in this story, she's in this part of I'm going to read sort of the beginning, but not right in the beginning. She's entering a party, one of these parties. The parties have taken on a more layered approach these last few months. Someone threw a theme party, a strained appeal to pretend like you're in Paris or some such nonsense, and the party throwers took it from there. Tonight's theme is masquerade, but it appears to be rather low effort. Across from the front door are two large vases with masks attached to small sticks. Valaria took her time choosing one. The artifice of a bird pretending to be another animal of lower worth was not appealing to her. Everyone knew birds were the best of the world's creatures. She let out an audible sigh and settled on a poodle, a small white one with whiskers. Valeria placed the mask on the bridge of her nose and strode into the party. The grand living room was crowded with animals. Most of them held their masks at their sides like an afterthought. A few had one covering their faces. Valeria spotted a few masks face down on a side table with a drink forgotten on them. So much for the theme. She spotted the host of the party and decided to play along for the time being. She tightened the pool mask a little on her face and approached the barristers, the couple who owned the house, a charming but aloof pair of egrets with their thin arms locked. The husband had a habit of staring, as most husbands did. Woof, she said, as a way of greeting. Mrs. Barrister burst into laughter. She grabbed Valeria's arm. Thank you for playing along, dear. She unlocked herself from her husband and led Valeria further into the house. Have you been here before? No? Well, then you must have the tour. Yes, of course, the tour. Valeria usually sneaks away during the inevitable slow walk through the house, but tonight she's right in the middle of it. No escape for her. There's always some grand reveal in the tour, some new household improvement, perhaps a new piece of art or sculpture, or simply the view. She'd like to guess what it would be as the hostess led her and a few hanger-on through the house and up to the second floor. We just put a new window in our bedroom, swooned Mrs. Barrister to her guests. You can see the whole park from there. So there it is. The gaggle of guests walk up to the window and oblige with an ooh or an ah sound to relay themselves properly impressed. It was soon Valeria's turn. She glanced out the window. It was true. The view of the park was nice, trees as far as you could see, but her attention shifted to something closer. Down below in the courtyard at the back of the house, she could see a number of animals huddled together as if playing a game out of sight of their employers. They were all foot pups in their tight-fitted outfits, their tails showing. One of them, a dark-haired pup, noticed Valeria and shouted something. She couldn't quite make it out. She did a kind of exaggerated wave and then turned away, showing off her namesake purple plumage. There was a bit of applause from the courtyard below, and then something loud, followed by shouts. What was that? Exclaimed someone behind her. Suddenly the window was crowded with others peering below. Was that a gunshot? What happened? Mrs. Barrister spun on her heel and rushed out of the room. Valeria was right behind her. Normally, she wouldn't get involved in something like this, but her servants were down there, and if they were involved, well, she was part of it now, too. And that story is called, thank you, that story is called Two Sides of the Truth.
That sounds very cool.
Thank you so
My
much.
only problem with these events is that I'm like, okay, I'm going to go get the book right now. There's too many good stories. So I am going to jump. I don't remember the old game show, but just down one window on my screen to Beth, if you are able to just share a little bit about your inspiration for how you approach the prompt, and then share a little bit of your story with us.
Yeah, I I was a little surprised. Some of us got our animals assigned to us randomly, and I got assigned a leopard gecko, which I thought,
Yay.
oh gosh, I know nothing about them, except my nieces had one for a pet, and I looked them up and found out, where they're native to and all this stuff. And I thought, well, how is a leopard gecko gonna get caught up in a gritty noir story? They're so cute, the giant eyes. He's the epitome of he's just a little guy. And I thought, aha, wrong place, wrong time. Uh that's a good inroad. And I from there on figured okay, if we're doing lizards, I want to have a them fatale called the chameleon. But that's all I had for weeks and weeks and weeks. I was like, well, this is going to turn into something someday. And in my various friends group, I am the Muppet nerd. And so I was watching this old Jim Henson show from the 1980s called The Ghost of Fafner Hall. It's not great. Don't watch it. The most importantly, that particular style of puppet that they use for that show is horrific. But I was having a great time watching through, and I was watching episode 9, and there was this background character lizard with like 2 lines. And I thought, what is this guy's deal? And that mystery of what is the deal of this random background character with 2 lines, I thought, aha, that is my story, but told from the point of view of this other character. And it all just kind of spiraled out from there.
That's really cool.
The Mirror Maze district is everything wrong with New Growl. Identical towering buildings lined with one-way glass so that everyone inside can see you, but you are not allowed to see them. Every day I walk in the rain beneath towers of cold steel, lifeless concrete, glass with all its colors drained away, and all its shapes beaten into flat submission. At least Fluffner Hall was in lush green countryside with blooming gardens. Even my tiny London flat was in a colorful immigrant neighborhood, families crammed together in public housing, with cousins and neighbors everywhere. Always some auntie or other making sure I was fed. Here, I am alone. After the fire at Fluffner Hall, some went to London, some to Paris, and I joined Revito and Melody with a handful of musicians on a boat to New Growl. Revito and Melody barely leave their suite at the Perchester Hotel. I haven't heard from any of the New Growler musicians since we arrived. Perhaps the bonds I thought I'd made at Fluffner Hall had never been real friendships, just proximity and tolerance. Have I ever been able to tell the difference? Tss. Oye, gecko! I whip around, looking for the source of the soft voice. Over here, the alley. I follow the sound into a narrow, dark space between 2 buildings. No mirror glass here, just service entrances and trash bins. And a figure in the shadows, with two tiny, bright eyes darting around in different directions. Who are you? They call me the chameleon. Listen, you're getting caught up in something dangerous, something big. Fluffner saw you that night. How do you know about Fluffner? Were you... You were just yapping to the coppers. It wasn't a question. No, I promise. Mr. Wingley coached me on... A bitter laugh. Han gleden på Rexmorgos. Rich creatures always think their money is going to keep them safe, because it usually does. But not this time. The hawks are circling, and sooner or later they're going to figure out what happened. But what did happen? If Fluffner didn't accidentally kill himself, then... I feel my stomach drop into my shoes. They're trying to pin it on Corny, aren't they? He's the next in line to inherit Fluffner Hall, so of course it looks bad. No one has seen or heard from Corny or the feral diva since that night. The most popular underground radio show in England suddenly went dark. Everyone knew Fluffner and Corny hated each other, so what better scapegoat? But if Corny's innocent, then surely the evidence will prove it. Ay, Dios mío, they mutter. Or watch his oinky. A small, tired sigh. Look, it's adorable that you think playing it safe will keep you safe. Just keep your eyes open and your trap shut. They flick a card at me, and I drop my umbrella to catch it. On one side, only a spiraling green sea. On the other side, a hastily written clue. Little Silk Road, where the corn god plays the jade flute. When I look up, I'm alone again, except for the lingering scent of something warm, floral, and spiced.
That's great. Thank you. I always feel like there needs to be a better transition because they're always like, oh, that was so good. And now, okay, now we're going to the other person. So I apologize for just jumping from one to the other because they're all so good. Is it Phoenix? Is that how you pronounce it? Would you mind sharing your story, introducing yourself and then sharing your story or
Yeah,
your prompt approach and then the story?
absolutely. Hi, I'm Phoenix Bourgeois. I was assigned the Red Fox. So it was really fun for me to, well, first of all, the puns. That was amazing to have free reign there because I love a good pun. Um, and it was fun to kind of play with the noir theme and atmosphere and write from the perspective of the villain. So I'll go ahead and do my reading. My story is called One Killer Deal. It wasn't as hopping as the wild hare, or as howling as the alpha on a Friday night, but Vix liked the ambiance at the Fox Den. The red tinted lights, the beaded chandeliers, the shadows. The vintage brass ashtrays with hairless motifs. The jazz was steady, and the bartender knew how to make a proper martini, gin, and dry, with a caterpillar twist. If she was to meet this detective, Detective Angelica Dam, according to the facts sent to her agency, Vix would do it on her territory. Detective Angelica Dam entered the Fox Den at precisely 6 o'clock. Leoprine, wearing a velour fedora, ears perked out the sides. Unmistakable as a sore thumb at a poker match. Or a rabbit in a fox den, Vix thought. The detective ordered something with hops at the bar, snowball tail twitching through sensible off-the-cob gray trousers. She wore scuffed wingtip Oxfords, flat, no polish, no color, not even a lifted heel. Vix observed discreetly through thick coal lashes, taking another sip of her martini. Vix had done some sleuthing of her own. Research, if you will. Preparation, as with any business meeting. And to Vix, it was all business. Detective Angelica Dam was a transplant to New Grell, from somewhere up north. Cold, dry, somewhere without as much mud. She'd hopped after a bad marriage, a broken career, gone private to make a new name. Dam looked the part, gray rain-slick trench coat and an all too serious demeanor, but young, jumpy. Vic supposed she shouldn't call the borough black. She herself had risen in real estate at a dizzying speed. She'd earned her success, tooth and claws. Business was roaring. Done were the days of dusting off brownstones in the dregs of Willow's Weep, wetting her fur in Bogtown, or carrying an umbrella when it didn't rain at the Crow's Nest. Vixen Underwood hadn't made it in this hoof of a city. Sure, she had scars, but couture and concealer hid most of them. Champagne and growlers of giggle water hid the rest. Vix absently toyed with the long strand of white pearls at her necklace, at her neckline. Diamonds flashed on her ears, almost as white as her canines. She dug her way out from the eye, where property was stolen more than it was sold. Before, she couldn't rub two coins together. Now, she paid for her pata in cash. Vix twisted an auburn curl behind her ear. She was living her dream career, and she would be damned if anyone threatened it, especially someone wearing velour. Vixen Underwood? Detective Angelica Dam made her way across the smoke-laced lounge, shorter up close, square-backed. A doll and a detective. Attractive dame, in a dowdy, depressing way. In a way that made you work for a grin. Vic sniffed the air. Detergent. Petrichor. A faint aroma of wood smoke and straw bed. Dry sweat. Vix narrowed her amber yellow eyes and smiled, more sharp than welcoming. It's Vix. Got a flame? Quit. Dam flipped her chair around and sat, legs straddling the splat back, toes scraping the floor. She cracked her neck, set a rain-dappled wax cotton briefcase on the table between them with a soft thud. Vix pursed her lips and snapped her cigarette case closed. I'll stop there.
So I thought of a follow-up question that I'll let you all go. I'll think about while we go around the circle and then I'll come back to it at the end, which is just thinking about what noir means to you. So we won't dive into that now, but I just thought I'd mention it so that you can have a little bit of time to think about it, and then maybe if we can kind of just have a group chat at the end, because it's kind of one of those terms that we all think we kind of know what it is, but then you have to define it and um maybe it's not as obvious as you think it is. So I'm going to jump over to Penn if you would like to go next.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay?
It's a little quiet.
Turn it up. How's this?
That's
Better?
better. Thank you.
Um, so unlike everybody else's story, mine doesn't actually take place in New Growl because from well, when I kind of looked at the whole thing a little bit differently than the way Elizabeth described. We were from me, we were presented with a game and we had these characters to create that were going to participate in the game. And the story that I came up with was his backstory before he even got to New Growl and what his motivations were. But it's the white park cattle character that I picked out mainly because I like black and white animals quite a bit. I have black and white cat, I have a white cat, I have another black and white cat, and I have a lot of penguin memorabilia.
Nice.
But his story takes place in London in 1933. And I'm just going to jump in after he's a bouncer at a nightclub. And one of the, oh, there's my cat. One of the cocktail waitresses comes to visit him after he's been offered a deal to sell his stake in the nightclub.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
They're going to help.
Lynette showed up at my flat, knocking as I was getting out of the bath. I answered with my towel around my waist. Water dripped off my shoulders onto the floorboards. For a moment, neither of us said anything. She was looking up at me, her dark brown cocker spaniel snout pointed up at my bare, pale chest height. But she kept eye contact. Her eyebrows shifted slightly over her seeking amber eyes. We'd been there before, stuck, trying to read each other's minds. Come on, I said, before the shadows lengthened anymore. I'll get dressed. You know where everything is. I left the door open for her and headed back to my room. Love, I'm sorry, she called after me. I'm just banging on your door when you're trying to relax. You're all right. When I came back out in shorts and a vest, she was at the kitchen window, looking out into the garden. I had washed and dried off, but seeing her coat catch the shine of that golden hour light made me start to sweat all over again. I think he was serious about that offer, she said without turning around. I ignored that. Now that I'm dressed, can you give a bloke a hug? She turned, smiled, but there was an effort to it. She embraced me, warm and solid against my chest, her head tucked into my shoulder. It was uncomplicated. We let go before it became complicated. She quipped with a mock and a cock of her brow. If you can call that dressed, you actual layabout. Yeah, I'm a cad. You can say it. I thumped my chest and we had a good laugh. Her gaze drifted back out the window to the garden as her laugh weakened. Do you remember when you used to talk about retiring in Suffolk? Where my parents are from? Where my parents' were from? I don't know that I ever stopped talking about it. You're just not around as much. Yeah, we said that before. How much more are you going to read my own biography to me, pup? Don't call me that. Her ears shook. A squeak snuck into her voice. But, Ian, 3 years you've been calling me that. 3 years ago, I told you to stop. I've been waiting for... She stopped, shook her head. Don't you ever want anything besides a nice suit? Her anger caught me off guard. I don't... No, she barked. Listen to me for once. Her eyes were shining, pink around the edges. You're going to refuse that buyout. I know you are. You're going to make some noble stand about what's right, about not being pushed around, about principles, and Charlton's going to destroy you for it. Our club. Is it? She took a step closer. Our club? You worked yourself half to death, worked almost every night to keep Dex's running smoothly. You've covered for girls coming in late or missing shifts, handed out money you'll never see again. You hooked up folks with more than just booze and don't talk to anyone about it. You make sure everyone else is taken care of, always. And you're getting 20%? You're thinking that's what you're worth there? She panted. And now you haven't said nothing. But I know what you're thinking. Yeah, I think you said it right there, what I'm thinking. It's not about that. It's about what you're worth. But it's not about what your cut is worth. She left her mouth open to say more. I waited for her. I'm going to skip some parts and jump. I don't trust Dexter anymore either. He's been talking about the Scotsworm like he's Dex's lost mentor or father, Lynette shivered. It could be that Dexter thinks he's helping you. I want to think he really does, but he's starting to sound like a newsreel from Berlin. He talks to me sometimes after he's given you one of his philosophy talks. He thinks there's a proper order to the universe and a proper way to get things done, and you're just a bloke who won't step up. She put on a mock of his growling cadence when quoting him. But the Germans will, and Charlton is his gateway to Berlin. I was reminded of something that Lynette had said to me after our thing. She looked at me while I lost focus for a moment. What won't I step up to? I asked without looking at anything. She touched my face, bringing hers back into focus. You think wanting something makes you selfish. That's why you think fighting for Dex's club is noble. You say it's yours, but you're willing to take less than a third of a three-man operation. You might even make some noble stand about being able to prove yourself to the law. And where would that put you? You also gave your statement to the sergeant. I snapped my jaw shut. I realized I had walked into a trap. Take the money, Ian. Be selfish for no good reason. Go to the fields and farms you told me about. For once in your entire life, just run away and be happy. Because even if you're right, especially if you're right. She put her hand on my face, pulled my snout down to hers, quick and fierce, a nuzzle and a kiss. And suddenly she stepped back. I still can't save you if you won't save yourself. She left me in the kitchen. I was letting her go again. I stood there thinking that she was right. I was going to refuse the buyout on principle, that I could survive anything they threw at me and I would be fine, and she would be fine because all would go all right. I didn't realize she was right about everything else, she said as well.
Thank you. Gonna jump down to, is it Shedric? I should have announced or asked for all the name pronunciations ahead of time, but you guys can correct me when you introduce yourselves.
Shedric is exactly right. It's
Okay, good.
um so I'm M. Shedric Simpson, and I was assigned the Devon Rex cat, which
Mm.
was quite exciting because I do like cats, but I've only ever had black cats, five of them. Um, so the Devon Rex was all new to me, and I dug into it, and these little excitable little cats with big ears and big eyes that look perpetually startled. And then I dug a little deeper, and it's actually a very recent breed. Ironically, for a story set in the 20s, this is a cat that didn't exist until mid-century. Um, and because there were so few of them to breed from, it turned out that there were some problems with inbreeding in the era before genetic testing. It was not unusual to have a Devon Rex with hereditary myopathy, which is a muscular disease that can be lived with, but it's dangerous in an excitable animal. And if they get very excited, their muscles can just give out and can even lead to death if they get too excited. And it struck me as so deeply tragic to have this incredibly excitable, energetic cat and also have that cat need to be restrained all the time. And that's when I realized I'd met my protagonist. So that's Deirdre Nesbitt. And once I found her, I knew I needed an opposite. So while she's always trying to do the right thing, and even despite the whole world being against her, I found somebody who was at his bottom, who had a healthy body, but had given up, and that is my Thomas Stray, which is the name he uses throughout the story. It's not necessarily his real name, but he's a stray Tom, just like thousands of others from New Growl. So that's the name he goes by when he needs to not be anyone. I caught my first glimpse of Deirdre Nesbitt as I entered Beltham, a pale figure drifting along the bluff above the village, almost translucent against the salt-stained sky. I didn't recognize her, not then, just took her for a portent of something terrible to come. Worry tickled the scruff of my neck. Every sense told me I shouldn't have come, shouldn't have taken the job in the first place. It wasn't my sort of work, and an alley cat like me had no place out under such a vast and aching sky. But there's times when we all need to fight against our better instincts. The fact of it was, I needed the money. Enough to get out of New Growl before the city chewed me up and swallowed me, the way it had so many others. So here I was, with a name on my tongue and a gun in my pocket. A truck careened past, the Nesbitt's Fine Fish logo emblazoned on its side. I sent the borrowed Muick Standard 6 lurching towards the shoulder, but a cascade of gravel still pinged against the door panels. By the time the dust settled, the ghost on the bluff was gone. I focused my eyes back on the road, told myself I'd imagined it. Beltham wasn't much to look at. A cluster of old Victorians crowded around the heart of the village, every one of them as bone-tired as I was after 5 hours of driving. Old shops with patched cedar shakes, their cast-iron railings barely clinging to second-story balconies. The towering shape of the old cannery rose up on my right, a brooding block of wood and metal at odds with the rest of the village, almost a century old from what I dug up. Peeling paint said the factory had seen better days. Just like so many of us in New Growl, I'd grown up on Nesbitt's fish, and their tins had been a premium currency in the trenches. But the war had ended years ago, and folks wanted better now, something fresh, instead of a reminder of rationing and air raids. Nesbitt's was a name in decay, just like the village surrounding it. I glanced at the map spread across the passenger seat. The estate stood to the north, perched between the village, the ocean, and the emptiness of the sprawling heath. Upon that same bluff where the ghostly figure had just vanished. I scrunched my whiskers and wove the Muick past all those peering faces, every one of them telling me how much I didn't belong. The buildings fell away, and a twisting lane led up the west side of the hill. The gate stood open, but of course, they knew I was coming. I'd sent the letter myself. I drove through, and Nesbitt Manor rose up in front of me. Halfway between a temple and a mansion, the manor still emanated a kind of dignity that age hadn't managed to strip away. The central wing stood 3 stories tall, clad in pale pink stone. Ionic columns braced enormous balconies that overlooked the coast, and black iron finials decorated the roofline. Yet, for all that grandeur, an air of ruin hung over the place. The lane ended in a loop some 100 feet in front of the house, with a closed-off drive leading around to the west. I pulled the Muick over and stared up at that imposing facade. My whiskers twitched. I took a breath and forced them to settle. Judging by the envelope of cash in my breast pocket, my client was already plenty rich. Yet his kind always wanted more. I swung the door open, and salt wind scraped my nostrils. Old money. Old blood. I should have known better than to get caught up in it. But I'd been born on the wrong side of the growl, and there was a price to getting out. I'd pay it either way. In the end, it always came down to blood.
That's great. Thank you. I was going to interject. I asked the folks that are watching if they had to choose an animal star for a mystery story, then what would the animal be? And one person said they would be a giant bear with an orange tabby cat for a best friend, which I thought was very fun. So, Megan, if you would like to go next.
How fortuitous. Our stories are linked. So I, when I signed on to the project, wanted very quickly to go with the American Blue Rabbit. Just I had an idea for a bad bunny who got into all sorts of trouble. But it really did not coalesce with me at all. Like I couldn't figure out what her story was until I was talking with my friend Shedric, who had this really wonderful cat, Deidre, and my story for Poppy, my bunny, did not come together until she fell in love with Deidre the way that I had. And then I kind of figured out where the story was going from there. So this one is called The Perfect Victim. Forsythia Poppy Bunting might have been a rabbit, but she had newshound in her blood. She was a Class A wordslinger, knew every which way to paint a picture in the rags, and she didn't need 1,000 words to do it. so it seemed a particular unfairness that the lush, high-ceilinged, warmly wooded, richly carpeted abode she stood in could share the same designation as her thin-walled apartment down in the Cannery District. What a great injustice that even when rich men fell, the depths they land in were far above her reach. Poppy thumped her foot once against the thick Persian rug and wondered what a Cornish Rex was doing with such an artifact. If he was cousin to a Persian or if this was some kind of cultural appropriation. Her nose twitched. Much as she adored her dear Deidre, Poppy never had much interest in the affairs of cats. Mind your foot, Poppy, she whispered to herself, and dipped a paw down into the bag she'd slung over her shoulder to touch the skull of her riding partner in thanks for the reminder. She didn't need her big feet tapping out her position and tipping off the downstairs neighbors while she prowled Kenneth Nisbet's ostentatious apartment. Kenneth was out for his dalliances at the local gentlemen's club. She had at least 3 hours to snoop before the cat came back. And for all the high-class veneer of his apartment, it was considerably smaller than the countryside manor he'd grown up in. That belonged to his niece now. Poppy visited Deidre as often as propriety would allow an old college friend. Perhaps a few hours extra, but only because it took so long to bid farewell and close the door on Deidre's beautiful smile, her sad eyes, soft voice. It was likely that Poppy was more familiar now with Kenneth Nesbitt's former home than he was, and the thought curled her lips in cruel delight. His apartment was a mess. There were papers on the entry table, a hat hung on the lamp. Kenneth was clearly used to sprawl and had exceeded the natural edge of his borders at least a decade ago. This is going to be over in no time, she murmured to the skull, as she picked an unopened envelope off the top of the stack. Dues for his gentleman's club. Final notice stamped in red across the name. Slovenly old git, the skull agreed in her own voice. Bet he's got receipts for Deidre's assassin laid out on his desk. Now we just have to find it. Poppy's nose twitched again, and she squeezed the skull in her bag to suppress the urge to hop. Ever since she found the skull in the back closet of a university bio class, forgotten, unlabeled, scrubbed clean of flesh. The bones were stained with the memory of it. Finding had become Poppy's superpower. 2 heads were better than 1, and the little shrew skull she carried in her bag was always with her, sniffing out the next clue, though the nose had long brought it away. Her talent should have made her famous. She was a marvel. She broke the story of Beryl Rambouillet's secret love affair before it was even a whisper through society. She knew what everyone was wearing, what everyone was talking about, months before the rest of the city. She should have been working at the New Growler with a mahogany desk the size of a barge and 12 Pulitzers to her name. Instead, she was stuck in the tabloids, selling gossip to the meowing Post. It paid the bills, sure, but Poppy was destined for more than second-hand suits and an ever-mounting tab at the bar below her apartment. Thin walls, thin floors, rowdy drunks downstairs that kept her up all night. She complained once, just once, to the barback, and he said it was her problem for taking on the rent when she knew she had those overgrown ears. Deidre loved her ears. She said she'd never met such a good listener, a good friend. Poppy could have listened to Deidre read the phone book, if only to have a minute longer hearing that voice. Where I'm going to there.
Thank you. I love the juxtaposition of the two. That's really fun. Somebody else in the audience said an ermine or a pine marten would make a good femme fatale, which I think is really good. Camden, would you like to go next?
Sure. So I had a silky chicken, which I have to admit that I picked originally because I misread it and thought it said silky chicken, and I love mermaids. So I had picked it and I was like, oh my gosh, this sounds amazing. It's like a chicken, but silky. But I was still very excited because I learned that they have blue ears and black bones, which is fascinating. So that's sort of where I started with it. But because of the idea of it being a silky chicken, I sort of got obsessed with them being royal because they're human-like and they're different and new. Let me just pull up my thing. Okay. and mine is called Mayrin Royalty. You're new here, the clerk said to me as he counted up my items, meal, grain, and a couple cans of Animal Noirs. I pushed my sunglasses up my beak, hoping he wouldn't notice the blue ears behind my scarf. If he did, he might recognize me as royal, and I couldn't have that. Even if I was so far down the line of succession that I got all the work with none of the benefits. What makes you say that? I asked, looking up, then down again. Nothing seemed suspicious. You're wearing sunglasses. Not even bright water has those mass-produced yet. Oh, I said. I debated pulling the sunglasses off, but then my disguise would be revealed. So I pushed them even further up my beak until they pressed my feathers into my eyes. I was stubborn, like Mother always said. Even though she'd done lessons for me hours upon hours, trying to teach me the responsibility of Wren women to be strong, all she taught me was how to be stubborn. That'll be 15 pounds, the clerk said. I handed him a 20-pound note. A tip, if you'll answer a question of mine. He shrugged. Have you seen this man anywhere? I asked, pulling out a picture of my brother. It was a year old, taken on the edge of the east wing of our estate. It was blurry, but I didn't have time to get anything else. D. Wren? Shit, he recognized D from the picture. That meant he might recognize me as well. Then he'd turn me into my family and I'd be killed, just like Z. Whenever I closed my eyes, I could see Z's green blood dripping out from beneath her scales. I wish I hadn't gone to check on her. I wish I'd been able to see more than the assassin's slitted eyes as they ran away. I wish I had given her a proper burial. Instead, I leaned in close as she whispered, soft as the sun, new growl, new growl, new growl, and then she pressed the photo into my chest. And I was here, in New Growl, already making myself known. But have you seen him? I whispered, my beak clamped tightly together. No, he shrugged. Sorry. He looked genuine, not like Mother when she was apologizing to a commoner for raising taxes. She'd always shared her true feelings with me after they left. Something about me being so far away from the throne made me approachable to her, I guess. I wasn't a threat. I handed him another few pounds just to make sure he stayed quiet and grabbed my food. Oh, and one more thing, he added before I could leave. I turned, trying to hide my frustration. Mother said that was always one of my worst skills. I hadn't mastered hiding my emotions. I blamed it on the feathers that were always getting in my face, but she said it was a skill I just lacked, and I could never learn. Yes, I asked. He held up the pounds. If you keep giving people money and asking them about Dayren, then they will think you're from the crown. I turned away so he couldn't see how right and wrong he was. I was 17th in line for the throne. I never rule, and that's why I knew it would be a while before they came for me. I still had some time to find E, even if I didn't have as much time as I wanted. Thank you, I said, trying to sound grateful. Then, before he can give any more tips, I left. And I'll stop there.
Thank you. Beth, I'm jumping down to you if you would like to go next. Oh, you already went. I'm sorry. You moved. You moved. I'm so sorry. Angelique, if you'd like to go next.
Hi, I would. So my animal is a gorilla. And I was really excited that gorilla was still available. And you were asking earlier, like, oh, is this the kind of thing you think about, like animals and mysteries and whatnot? And this particular genre and whatnot, no, that wasn't something that I independently thought about. But I do think about animals and like animal behavior and primates in particular quite a bit. I have a degree in anthropology, and it's something I've kind of always been interested in. So I was actually very excited to be able to incorporate that animal into a story.
Have fun. Thank you.
Okay. So my name is Angelique O'Rourke, and my story is called Gorillionaire. Go ahead and go. Hildebrand carefully pulls on each glove and straightens her matching hat. Glancing in the mirror for confirmation that the outfit looks as she wishes it, she retrieves her handbag from the hook on the wall and walks out the door. A call from Drummond at any hour would have been concerning, but at 6 a.m., the only options were an emergency or the rare call on the depressing drunken tail end of an all-nighter. Hello? She'd answered hesitantly, having woken only moments before. Hildebrand, Drummond was whispering, the oddness of which quickened her pulse in alarm. Something's happened. I don't know how to explain. I didn't know who to call. Can you come here? Where are you? At the condo in Hamhock? Shit, no, we haven't been in touch. I'm on the island. Can you make it to the airstrip? I'll send my plane. Hildebrand was harried and off balance. You want me to go to the private airport and meet you in the Bahamas right now? Drummond exhaled in an aggrieved, shaky way. Yes, I know I sound insane. Please just, I can't stay on this line long. I don't know who's listening. Ugh, just, can you come? He sounded near tears, which alarmed her even further. Yes, yeah, I can just move some work stuff around on my way. Sit tight. Drummond was actually crying lightly. She could tell by his breathing. Thank you, thank you. He gave her the flight details and hung up. That was about an hour ago, and Hildebrand has been in crisis management mode since. Showering, packing, she didn't ask how long the stay would be and didn't want to call back. Something felt too raw. She just took enough things for about a long weekend and knew she could manage for longer if needed, and sending some emails to let clients know she had had a family emergency. Family emergency, the nature of which is unknown and the tenor of which is both bizarre and frightening. Her older brother and she are not close. They had been as children, though, which gave them a sort of permanent shorthand with each other, an emotional direct line of communication. There's a specific type of access to someone else that comes only with having have interacted with them on a regular basis while growing up. Nothing else can emulate it. In any case, Drummond has never reached out like this before. He could be messy, but more of a melancholy, pontificating playboy messy than a desperate plea for company messy. Briskly walking down the street to her car parked on the corner, she has genuinely no idea what she's heading into. Cocktail Heights is her favorite neighborhood in New Growl, bustling but not overrun with foot traffic, vaguely artsy while remaining primarily residential. She feels at home here and often reflects on her good fortune to be a person who has largely felt at home in the world from the start. The city's name has always caused her to crack a wry smile, though. As a gorilla, even the bipedal and straight-backed version they had evolved into, she thinks to herself, I know one thing for sure. We don't growl. We roar. When she and Drummond were little, they had an easy rapport. He was charming and rakish. She was earnest, stoic, and somewhat prim. By chance, their personalities fit fairly naturally into the roles expected of them by their well-to-do, reserved family. They weren't the best of friends, but the house was harmonious, and privilege held hardship far out of sight and mind. As they came of age, they grew apart. Hildebrand was always drawn to the practical things in life, not at the expense of pleasure. She wasn't ascetic, but becoming a forensic accountant was enough excitement for her day-to-day life. Drummond thrived on risk and competition, which Hildebrand found exhausting and more than a little shallow. Over time, he became obsessed with growing the modest wealth he had access to into a sort of grotesque treasure pile in a dragon's cave, hoarding for hoarding's sake, showing off and grandstanding. Hildebrand kept her distance. She didn't understand the draw or the point. He'd built a cult of personality around himself, using his sparkle to draw in a perpetual entourage of admirers, invariably animals that Hildebrand could find no conversational footholds among. It was all so cliche. Drummond had written a memoir with accompanying podcast and YouTube channel, of course, called Gorillionaire, for Christ's sake. How could you not laugh and shake your head? At least a little. The flight to Exuma takes a little less than 3 hours. After the decline of humans, the Exuma swimming pigs moved on from Big Major K into the rest of the islands and now handle all the tourism from the other animals and the general upkeep. It's a beautiful and restful place. Hildebrand's been fortunate to visit Drummond a handful of times over the years. He lives on the island part-time with a glamorous pig named Samra that Hildebrand has seen in photos but never met. During the flight, she wonders idly if Samra will be there when she arrives. When Hildebrand opens the door to the private residence on the island, it's dim and shaded inside. The heat of the day is masked with chilly AC, and all of the window coverings are drawn. Drummond is sitting on the floor on a plush white rug, his back resting against the leather sofa. He has several devices spread around him in a semicircle, tablets, phones, a laptop, something that looks like a walkie-talkie or a satellite phone. His face is drawn and ashen. Hi, he says with a quavering, ironic smile. Long time no see. Hey, Hildebrand replies. What am I looking at right now?
Thank you, all of you. They're so, it always, I say, sound like a broken record when I'm interviewing anthology authors, but it always amazes me how everything sort of fits together, but also is so, each one is so unique. And I think that's one that I really enjoy about reading anthologies. And I think that because the pictures changed order, that I missed somebody. So I'm going to bounce back up. Is it AP? Is that what you go by? Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. I
Oh,
know
no problem.
when Beth
Yeah.
dropped off and it all switched around, I lost
Yeah.
my. So
Just
yeah.
the slides are sliding.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I chose a hedgehog was an option, and hedgehogs are adorable, so I thought that would be a great addition to a murder mystery. But it was very specifically a Somali hedgehog that Elizabeth had in the prompt. So I naturally went down a bit of a rabbit hole of like, okay, I need to find out about different types of hedgehogs. And so basically Somali hedgehogs they've got a very small range. There is they were only described in like the 1890s. There's been debate about whether they're actually a separate species of hedgehog. And the closest thing to, a definite distinction between them and pygmy hedgehogs is the number of toes on the rear foot. So this just seemed like, oh, okay, clearly, my character will be hiding her identity, and this will be a secret that is that she will be willing to, in the initial plan for the book. Like, this is the secret she will either kill or be killed over. And then when the anthology concept changed to just we're gonna do noir stories, I was like, oh, okay. I guess I'm going noir pastiche, and we're gonna start with my hedgehog dame walking into the PI's office. And so that's where I start with femme predatrice. Yeah, and so Barbara paused at the frosted glass window of the third floor office. Reasonably well painted block letters spelled out Joseph Donovan Private Investigations, but she could still see the remains of a previous tenant's name, the letters almost but not entirely scraped away. Appropriate for this city, constantly reinventing itself, but never quite forgetting what had come before, never quite managing to create something better. The previous tenant had been an attorney, apparently. Barbara wondered what sort of law almost undoubtedly he, practiced in a rundown third-floor office. She grimaced and knocked. An educated socialite of means should not be consulting any professional in this sort of office. Let yourself in, a voice called from within. She took a moment to smooth back her spines before opening the door. What can I do for you, miss? The mongoose behind the desk set down a file and gestured for her to sit. The available chair was wooden and looked very much second-hand. Someone with a bit of skill and pride in his possessions could have refinished it into something decent-looking, but it was, at least, a chair that could accommodate a range of body types. The mongoose was flanked by filing cabinets, which had seen better days. Barbara wondered how many of them had belonged to the erstwhile attorney, or perhaps an even earlier tenant. Containers of takeout food balanced precariously in an overfull trash can. Barbara Anderson, she, her, a Telerex scleraty. The snout wrinkled a bit in mild amusement. Joseph Donovan, he gestured toward the door that bore his name. He, him, Irva Edwardsi. He was older than her by perhaps a decade, a hard decade. His muzzle was grizzled, prematurely silvered fur mixed with natural gray. One ear was missing a small chunk, and his snout was scarred with scratches. She suspected there were more such scars under the cheap suit. He would have been a soldier, young but not a child, gone away to war and then dropped back into his old city to find the citizenry made alien by his own experiences. I must confess, Mr. Donovan, that I never expected to find myself in this position. She paused and visibly suppressed fidgeting fingers. Take your time, Miss Anderson. But the more you tell me, the easier it'll be to get you into a more comfortable position. An old charm lingered in the voice. It had probably been a nicer voice once, but it had taken on a smoker's rasp. The remains of a cigarette sat in an ashtray in need of emptying, the smoke curling ceilingward. The entire room smelled of cigarettes, his, the attorney's, and years of clients. I've lived in many places, Barbara said. I have the means to go where I like. And you liked Oxbridge. She nodded, unsurprised that he had noted her accent, though obviously one does not attend the university without family support. Was it a university, or was it a finishing school, in your particular case? Barbara felt her go cold. Is there a difference between universities and finishing schools? Real life is not about tutors. Whether that real life consists of the practice of law or medicine or politics or philanthropy or household management. The mongoose, who she knew held a professional license but no academic qualifications beyond a pre-war high school diploma, offered a conciliatory shrug. I recently found myself in need of a change of scenery, Barbara continued. A past romantic entanglement made life uncomfortable. What was the nature of the entanglement? Nothing so sordid as your normal business, I suspect. It was not quite an engagement, but there were expectations on both sides. The mongoose nodded, looking as though he suspected the situation was, in fact, sordid. Good. Embarrassment was an easy explanation for providing thin details. Our families were close. There were expectations, but he failed to meet mine. I didn't bear him any particular ill will. We were both young, and if it turned out that we were a poor match, how much better to discover that before a wedding? She sighed, not longingly, but with the premature world weariness of heartbreak. You didn't bear him any ill will, the mongoose prompted. Past tense? I am being followed, Barbara said. I don't know who he is. I don't recognize him. He's a cobra. Ah, the mongoose said sourly. I think you misunderstand the nature of my business.
That's really good. I really like that. Yeah, this is fun. I would like, if it's okay, to jump over to the question that popped into my head that I mentioned earlier and it sounded like maybe since the switch midstream, you kind of had to think about it as well, is that, what makes something noir? Why is it, what makes it noir as opposed to just any other kind of mystery? So, and we don't have to go in order or anything. We can just, like, if you just want to shout out, I'm just curious what you had to think about, especially when you said you had to change the story. And maybe we can go ahead and start with yours, because when you had to think about it, this was the story, this was what it was going to be, and now it's going to be noir mystery. What did you think noir needed to have in it to make it noir?
Well, some of reviewers, like I forget who I forget who said this, but somebody said hard-boiled is when your protagonist like beats up or kills somebody, and noir is when your protagonist is the one who's beaten up or killed. Um, I think it's usually there's for me for noir there's a sense of just kind of um not quite cosmic horror degrees of the universe is out to get you and you just can't win, but there's a little bit of that. There's that sort of there's a darkness that is always going to
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
always going to be there.
It's cosmic horror without the cosmic monster, basically.
Basically,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the universe is completely uncaring, but looking into that void doesn't automatically drive all of your characters insane. So
Right. Okay. How did the rest of you think about it?
Well, I definitely had a switch as well, since I had written about 75% of this story taking place in the modern times. And when we decided on noir, I kind of jumped back to the in between the wars specifically,
Mhm.
and that's kind of where I was focused on. But I was focused more as noir as like just exposing realistic darkness, like the things that we have to do in order to get by, the things that people find themselves pushed into and having to choose between their angels and the darker nature, and when their angel is their darkness, what's gonna happen. And I mean, for this particular story, and I forgot to mention, that is the characters that I chose to go with the cow specifically reference an old Mithraic um, relief that is common through old Roman cults of the bull sacrifice, the
Yeah.
tauroctony, and it's kind of a dramatization of that. So it's all of that.
Did anybody else had to kind of wrestle with that of like how do I make sure this is a noir mystery versus any other kind of mystery?
Um,
I oh
oh no, go ahead.
um I have a slightly different way of looking at it, I guess, because so I think I came onto this a little later than a couple of other people. So I chose gorilla because like most of the other animal, well, I mean, I would have chosen gorilla anyway, but most of the other animals had already been chosen and stuff like that. So I was kind of thinking of it as, which this was not the take that everyone had, as more of like a series of tropes and moods and aesthetics. Um, because I was thinking of it as, obviously in my story, I say as being in the future. So it was more based on how do I kind of visualize this and sort of aesthetically and like the mood and atmosphere really make it have that feeling that I associate with like classic, you know, noir films and like style, fashion, that kind of a thing. So that was kind of more how I was conceptualizing it within the
Yeah,
story.
yeah, yeah. Go ahead, Megan.
Yeah, so when I signed on for the project because I was making a bunch of animal puns in the group chat and it sounded like a lot of fun. But when I signed on to like actually like fully write a noir story, kind of went back to like reading a little bit of Raymond Chandler and like the kind of like classic mysteries. Um, and one of the things that really stood out was just how like voice was really big in the narration. So just kind of like quippy and fast. And the other thing that stood out to me was how um, it's really a narrow focus on like a single person, like through a lot of it. So that's kind of like what I was thinking about when I was trying to put this
Mhm.
story together. It was just like, okay, somebody who is backed into a corner and has no good choices in a situation. Usually that's, I mean, kind of like what I think of when I think of a noir story. And so it ended up being uh when I was setting out to write my own short story for it, like how do I get somebody into a really bad situation as quickly as possible?
I love that. So atmosphere, the type of story, you know, the focus, it's fun to see how because I when I picture noir, I mean, when I picture noir, like the first thing that comes to my head is Star Trek and the episodes where they're in the holodeck with the captain being the noir detective. But but everything that you have all said like does fit into that is, you know, like all those things coming together kind of make it noir. Um, it's just fun to see how it can be interpreted in different ways and still fit within, you know, still identifiable by somebody who is familiar with it at any level can say, oh yeah, that works. Did anybody else have a little bit different take or a little bit different process of thinking about that? Go ahead.
Um, oh,
We can do both. You can go ahead and then I'll jump over to Shedric.
okay. I was gonna sort of piggyback off Megan because I also recognized that Noir was very voicey. I also recognized in myself that I cannot write that voice. I tried this story about 3 times in that Noir voice, and I was like, this is just not working. So I had to find other ways to put the Noir in, and that sort of backed into the corner kind of feeling. And a lot of it felt very, even though my character is humorous, I felt like the place itself was so important in it. So exploring that atmosphere, we're post-war, but we're not really out of that feeling of sadness yet. And so what does that look like if you're just walking down the street and you sort of feel it on everybody? And it's part of the whole place that you're in.
Yeah. Yeah. Shedric, you were going to say something too?
I was also jumping off of what Megan said because my approach was pretty similar. I'd read a lot of writers who were influenced by noir, but I hadn't read any of the noir classics, so I went and picked up a copy of The Big Sleep, and I enjoyed the style and the swagger. Um, I was off put by a lot of the misogyny and homophobia that was also in there, and so to me, I wanted to write something that kept the grit and the darkness and the loneliness, but also put it in a world where I had queer characters and where I had a strong woman who was not just going to be, well,
Yeah. No. Yeah, because there are very particular female characters in the older stories.
they
So
did not get a good turn in that book.
no. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else have anything? Go ahead. Yeah.
A similar story here that I knew I wanted queer characters and queer representation, um, and also thinking about how something can be noir if it's not in that specific like 40s time frame. Uh, I, that's one thing I really liked was that folks were having their stories set in different decades and different locations, but connected through this thread. And specifically with the queerness in mind, I wanted to play with color because when I was thinking about what little noir I've consumed in media, one of the ones I thought about was Sin City, and entirely black and white except for when they use color. It's always done like very, very deliberately, and it has that big impact because of that. Um, and so I wanted to play around with that and play with the contrast between, complete lack of color, like the gritty, rainy city, and then suddenly bright, vivid colors and what that does to the mood.
Yeah. That's really fun. Anybody else want to pop in? You don't have to, it's okay. So I think that brings us to the end of our conversation. Thank you so much, everybody, for being a part of it, for being a part of creating this book. And so I'm excited to have it in the store. It's coming soon, but Elizabeth, why don't you share though, just in case someone's like, I don't want to wait till you get it in the store. Is there another place that they can get it online?
Yes. So, it's available in ebook everywhere. It's available on Amazon, and I'm so sorry, for paperback. It's available on my website for paperback, and it will be available literally absolutely everywhere within a few days for paperback. Um, it was supposed to be, so hopefully it will be
Yes.
within
Yep.
the 24-hour period. Fingers crossed. Let's all send,
Yes.
send our wishes.
It will be in the store. It might be a few days before we get it. So I'm excited to get it. I am typing my email into the chat. And if you all wouldn't mind, if you could send me an email with your contact information. I usually like to go through in the description of the video afterwards, and just whether you prefer that people look you up on your website, or if you want them to find you on Instagram, or whatever place you like people to find you. If you wouldn't mind emailing that to me, that way we don't have to go through it, on camera. But I would love to get their contact information so people can reach out to you. The thing that I love so much about anthologies is meeting so many different authors and being able to say, oh my goodness, I really love that story. I want to know if this person has written anything else, and that contact information allows them to go find out whatever else you've written. So, so if you wouldn't mind doing that, that would be awesome. And just thank you so much for being here tonight. I hope the book does really well, and I'm really excited for you all to have your work get out there in the story. So thank you a lot, and we will talk to you all later.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.